All right, I believe we're good. Welcome back to episode 3 of the Mitten Athletics Live podcast. As always, we are your hosts, Aaron Ide and Colin Hunter. We are brought to you by Mitten Athletic Supplies, your one-stop shop for all of your Gill athletic equipment. Please consider us if you are looking for anything new, team-wise, individual, need help with anything, you got questions, why you go somewhere, why this, please contact us. Yeah, today could be a little, I don't know, depends on who. It could be a little controversial, I guess. I think there's a lot
Maybe,
of
maybe not.
mixed opinions on this, but I think overall, I hope that people see it as what it is, which is a great stepping stone.
Yes.
But we are going to dive into the early qualifiers or EQs for Michigan track and field this year. This is year 1. This has been something that a lot of people have been asking for a long time, and I don't think that's obviously not the controversial part. I think the big thing is people are concerned that it's too difficult and that the EQs were not as easy as they thought they should be.
I think there's some people who are also, there's probably a smaller group, but there is still a group of people who think it might, I mean, even though the standards are hard, might be making it any way to make it easier is not a good thing to some people. Right.
There is also that.
I think that's a much smaller group. But yeah, we can talk about what that all means as we go along.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I guess starting off,
first, we should probably give a brief overview of how qualifying for the state finals has worked in the past.
Yep.
What the change is. We can probably hit a few of them. We don't need to go through every table and hit every mark. People can do that, but there's a few that pop out to me.
Yep.
But yeah, so talk about the past, talk about what brought the change on. I think we can probably talk a little bit about how the change happened, because I think that is helpful. That'll be helpful for some people.
Yep.
And yeah, what we think about it.
Yeah. So this change, the qualifying in the past has always been regionals, top 2 places go every region. And then they have to hit a mark after that, or a time or a height after that to go. So you could have 2 people that make it out of a region, or you could have like disc last year.
How many? Yeah, discus. How many made it from Division 1, Region 3 discus?
9.
So the entire finals.
Every kid in finals made it.
The entire finals discus made it.
Yep. Now that's a freak thing, and it was a very unique circumstance. But overall, you could have people not make finals.
I mean, is it a freak? It's probably a freak thing in that you had a good class of kids.
Mm-hmm.
Like there was just a good deep class of discus throwers last year.
A good deep class, and a lot of them all in one region, which you just don't see real often. Most of the time you see it spread out a little more, and maybe a region has 4 or 5 that make it out, but to see one having 9, it doesn't happen real often. So
I'd love to go it would take a lot of sifting, but it'd be fun to see like what the most, I've got to imagine that's got to be close to the most that's ever come out of a region for any event.
Yeah,
maybe there's a deep D2 2 mile. I bet that's what that's what the equivalent would be. It was a D2 boys 2 mile.
Okay.
Might do the same thing, but that'd be a fun exercise.
It would be. Yeah, so that's how qualifying has worked in the past.
Yeah, so either come first or second in your event, or hit a time or a mark.
Yep. And
on that day. And for the sprints, for the 1 and the 2, where we've got prelims and finals, you have to hit the mark in the finals, and that's important because there's a little difference now with the EQs.
Which I have mixed feelings on that. I understand why they do it, and I understand it keeps everything competitive. But at the same time, you get a kid who has a heck of a race, and all of a sudden there's a little tweak, and they're gone. But that's what this is for.
Right.
You know, this was put in for a few reasons, but weather being probably one of the top ones.
Yeah.
So these regionals take place all over the state.
Right. You get regions all over the state. They happen over 3 days. So Thursday, Friday, Saturday. You can have one site. I think there's a few sites that host multiple regionals, and maybe that's just cross country. But you could have a certain area where a D1 region happens on Friday, and either another D1 happens on Saturday or a D2 happens on Saturday, and same, like within 10 miles of each other, completely different weather the next day.
Yep. Or the same day, where we've had ones where we're down in Portage and it's raining, and the Grand Haven one is, oh yeah, we were bright and sunny. It was 75 degrees. And it's like,
yeah,
well, I mean, it is what it is. And you go to the next level, you go to college, and you have to do it on that day. They have 2 rounds of nationals. They have, the round 1 and round 2, and you have to do on the day. You have to be top 16. My argument to that would be
qualifying for those rounds
it's top number. You can qualify anytime. You have to be top 48 or whatever it is now. I think it's still 48. And then when you get there, you have to do it on the day, no matter what the weather is. And I could get behind that in high school if we wanted to do super regions and you had 2 regions. But we don't do it that way.
Right.
So I like the way we do it.
We can talk about that more later, where people all have their own ideas. And I saw somebody kind of throw something out like that, where you get multiple steps. But I don't love that idea. Where on the Gill podcast, they covered all 50 states, how you qualify. And I don't know how many steps California is, but California is just nuts in how long it takes you to get from the end of the regular season to state finals. There's at least 3 meets.
Yeah. And podcast you reference, the Gill Connections podcast. Go check it out if you are looking for another one. He covers everything nationwide, coaches. Yep. So
yeah, I'm about a quarter way through the interview with Tony Holler. So
yeah. Sorry,
go Tony. But yeah, so I think I want to say, just off the top of my head, I think the majority of the states were just one day regional to get to state finals.
Yep.
I think some of the states you had to qualify for your region. We get to take 2 people. So that's probably another step we should explain. So we get to take 2 people per event, 1 relay team per relay. There's also a regional additional qualifier.
Yep.
So if I have, for example, boys 1600, if 3 guys run faster than 4:36 in the regular season, no matter the meet, I think there might be like an FAT conversion if you are at a hand timed meet, which
there is.
It's 2025, guys. Come on, figure it out.
Agreed.
But if 3 guys run 4:36, you can take all 3. If 5 guys run 4:36, you can take all 5.
Yep.
If 2 guys run 4:36 and 1 guy runs 4:37, can only take 2.
Yep.
Same so you can do that for every event. No, but the relays, just 1 relay per 1 relay per relay distance.
Could you imagine though if you could really take 2 or 3 and you have teams that could qualify 2 or 3 4x4s? They're out there. They exist.
Yeah.
It's just the thought of it.
Racking my brain to think. Sure, I don't think there's any states that let you qualify more than 1 relay.
I don't think so. And then you go the opposite way and you go Texas. I'm pretty sure it's Texas. You get, I think
double
it's
points.
Well, it's double points, but it's also, I'm thinking just their qualifiers. It's 2. Like, I'm pretty sure it's top 2 in that division. Like, if you're Division 1, the state meet is the top 2 in an event, I believe. Or is it? No.
Texas is weird because there's
Weird.
like 5 different.
Top 12.
There's like
something really weird.
Texas is weird because there's like 5 different Christian school leagues to themselves. So there's like 4. There's multiple governing bodies. The great thing through listening to that series, the great thing about Michigan, in my opinion, you can get into the parochial schools versus the public schools debate if you want to. The great thing is that we have one governing body.
Yep.
I think New York also has like the public school league and the Catholic school league and stuff like that. Like we don't got to deal with that. It is every school in Michigan all against each other, one state champion per division. That's it.
Yep. So we kind of touched on it a little bit, but the main reason why people wanted to see this change, or a change, I guess I will say, is that it brought in the ability to, I don't say work around, but not have to be reliant on a good weather meet or be reliant on being as healthy as possible. And if you get hurt or tweaked just before the regional meet, but you're the top 5 in the state, and all of a sudden you don't make it. You know, every team can probably think of an athlete in the last X number of years it's happened to. You can call this whatever rule you want. I mean, you call it the Travis rule, you call it the Maddie rule, you call it whatever rule you want. It's there to help people who should be in because they're the top X number, not because they're trying to make the state meet bigger, but they want the best competition at the state level possible. And to see people who are the top 5% in the state, and you see some of those kids don't get in, that's just.
And that happens sometimes. Like it happens sometimes, right? Like, I think it was Matt Armalagos. I hope I pronounce your last name the right way. Michigan XC speed ratings guy. He said a lot of people agree with him. The beauty of the sport is you get one chance, and that's all it is.
Yeah.
And if this change never happened, like, I like it this way. I like it where you have an opportunity before regionals. You have a safety net.
Yep.
But if it never happened, I'd understand.
Yeah.
You know, it is what it is.
I would too.
But I think it's going to protect the best kids. At the very least, it's gonna protect the best. And if you got a kid who's throwing, let's see, what's the shot put mark? If you got a girl throwing 30, let's say there's a girl throwing 40 feet all year long.
Yep.
Okay. Early qualifying mark for girls is 39.6. If you got a girl who's throwing 40 feet, and she gets hurt at her conference meet, or just fouls, 3 times, or fouls twice, goes on tilt and throws the last throw 35 or something, right? Like that's what it's here for.
Yep. And it happens, and it's always going to happen, but this just helps try to level that out to make sure that when you get to the state meet, you have the best competition possible. I mean, that's just what it is. And right. I know that there are people who wanted easier numbers, people who wanted this, people who thought it was going to be more of a, we can go chase this meet, we can get it out of the way early, and we can do this. Like, if you have kids that can do it consistently, they'll do it at the meet when it happens. They're going to be able to do it at whatever early qualifying meet that you go to. But some of these marks, they're set high. I mean, I think the biggest one that I have heard people talk about is the girls' mile, 4:52.
Right. So let's talk about before we get there. That's a big mark.
That's a big mark.
That's a big mark. Except I saw a. Let me bear with me while I look up one thing.
Okay.
To put that in context a second.
Well, while you're looking that up, I'll set the table for what the meets have to be, or at least kind of what they are. So these meets, they're not super complicated, but they have to follow the traditional schedule of events. They have to have FAT timing, and they have to have more than 6 schools there. Which, honestly, when it comes down to it, it all makes sense.
Right.
And I can see the schedule events one, sure, but they're trying to keep the throws only meets out of it. The distance under the lights, where they're trying to bring in every big athlete. They're trying to keep those unique situations out of it,
which is going to create equity for schools. In theory, like I'm sure that Blue Jay Invite is one of the big distance races. And if you have a small school with a small budget, or a kid can't afford to get up there,
yep.
I'm assuming, gonna make an assumption that if this kid is like college bound and everybody knows it, I'm sure somebody's gonna help find a way.
Yeah.
Right. So, but in theory, it provides equity in that way. Backing up a second. So yeah, the girls 1600 is 4:52. I got to see an 8th grade girl run 4:50.47 on Saturday at the GVSU Gazelle Elite Mile.
Real quick, that's indoor 300 meter track.
Indoor 300 meter track. Jessica Jaswinski led it nearly wire to wire, and then Jessica got kicked down by Eliza Schwass in the last 50 meters. It was 8th grader 4:50. She's gonna have no problem.
Yeah. So I mean, you can take it and say some of these marks are going to be absurdly high, and they are. And honestly, I think there's a few of them that are maybe a little lower than they should be, and that's probably a hot take comment, but I think
okay. But anyway, so back to the how it works again. Before we really dive into the numbers. So yeah, so the meets have to 6 teams, FAT timing again. FAT, like 2025 guys, find a way. Traditional event format. I think that's the part I'm most disappointed about. I get it. We're hosting an invite for the first time this year. I was hoping that we could do a relays style. And I was split on changing it from the relays to a traditional invite. Because it might be hard for those meets to make it.
Yeah.
Maybe not. Maybe like the standards are tough. And so I'm hoping that water just finds its level over the next few years, and we figure out how to work this, and those fun meets stick around, and maybe ours even reverts. Maybe we decide in a year or two after seeing, it's early, it's mid-April, right? So maybe it's just not worth it.
Right.
But yeah, so I had to make the decision. Hey, we're choosing to go in this direction. So we're switching from the relays to, now we had no tradition to back up on, right? So it's the first year we're holding it. But yeah, I made the decision to go to the traditional 17 event format.
And
but then
again, year one, so they might change it and allow relays later.
Exactly. That's something that I think a lot of people that are reacting poorly, I'm trying to choose my words safely. A lot of people that don't like it are not seeing where the people who were on the committee to figure these things out have all said, hey, this is year one.
Yeah.
This is what we chose to do, and we're going to see what happens.
And it wasn't easy for them to get to even this. No. I mean, it was years of fighting and trying to figure this out, and bringing stuff to MHSAA and trying to find something that they would finally agree on to allow us to make a change to begin with. So we have to remember that there's a lot of work that went into making this happen, and not everyone's going to be happy.
Thank you to, I'm assuming it's a MITCA thing, right?
Yeah, I mean, they're about the only ones that have any.
Thank you to them. Thank you to those people for doing what they do and for volunteering their time and to putting their heads together and making it work. I'm curious why it's so hard to push it up to the MHSAA. Why they would be reluctant, why they can't, why they wouldn't give the Coaches Association more grace in that way. I don't know. I'm not sure. I'm not deep into Michigan track stuff as some of the people on the board are. So I don't know what those relationships are. I don't know all the ins and outs.
I'm not sure either. Yeah, I mean, I have no idea.
And you could get a different story depending on who you talk to, right?
Yep.
You know, this person could be completely reasonable to person A, and then person B might think that they're completely unreasonable. Yeah, so now basically what happens is if you hit an early qualifier mark, so the regional qualifier still a thing, state qualifier still a thing. So top 2 at regionals, also hitting the mark at regionals.
Yep.
Do you know off the top of your head, is it 8th place? So the average of 8th place
6
for state qualifying?
I believe it is 8th place.
I think so. I think how they determine that mark, how they
3 or 5 years,
the state 3
years.
Yeah,
I know it's 3 for early. Is it 3 for the state as well?
That's what I'm assuming. Okay. I'm assuming that if it's 3 for the early, it's 3 for state. So yeah, and the early qualifier is the average of 6th place
at the
state finals.
Yes.
It sounds, based on a comment Dan Whitco made, it sounds like there might have been a little massaging there, which is fine, right?
Yeah.
But they started with average of 6th place, maybe moved some numbers around here and there. Yep. But generally they all look respectable. Yeah. So now if you hit one of these marks at one of the early qualifier meets, which have to be approved. So I submitted the documentation to the committee today for ours.
That's a good point. It's not just you hit those marks or hit the check boxes. You have to apply for it.
Right. And Dan, awesome. He got back to me today. So there, it happens fast, which is awesome.
Love it. Are we approved?
According to Don Passenger, yes.
With hammer in.
I believe so, but we might have to talk to. Let's sidebar that. We might need to talk to our AD about that.
Okay, understood. Yeah.
So
okay.
Worst case scenario, we'll do a better job of hosting a hammer invite if we have to.
Sure.
Okay. So
yeah. Sidebar.
Anyway, sidebar. Okay. Yeah. So now there's 3 ways to qualify, which is at an EQ approved meet, hit one of the early qualifier marks, at regionals, hit top 2 in your event, or the state qualifier mark.
Yep.
So slightly easier path than it used to be.
Yeah. And in that right there, that you worded it the way it should be worded. Slightly easier. That's all it should ever be.
Yep.
Because I know there was a lot of talk when this first got mentioned that if it's too easy, all of a sudden your state meet's going to be huge. There's going to be too many people here, and it's going to be.
You don't want to water down the competition. You don't. No. It's a state finals for a reason.
Yep.
Yeah, and younger coach Colin was way too wrapped up in, man, it's hard to qualify for state finals, and now I get it. It's supposed to be the championship. It's supposed to be the best.
Supposed to be.
It shouldn't be easy to get there.
No.
So.
I think
marks. Oh, go ahead.
Touch on maybe a couple other things I've seen talked about that I actually think might be good, or a couple that are good, but it would have been nice to see this used as a way to get in win gauges.
To make them required.
Yeah. Now, maybe they tried, and maybe that's something that had to get pulled out. We don't know all the ins and outs of what they had to negotiate to get here.
Yeah.
But I could see that being a piece that comes in later.
Yeah. So that's actually one of the check boxes on the form. Will you have one or not? It says optional. and and we know it's optional, but
But
it says on the form, it says, well, you have a wind gauge.
that optional is going to disappear, I think, in
I
coming
bet it will.
years.
I bet it will too. I think that's where I can understand, like, there's only so many timing companies, and each timing company only has so many timing people.
Yep.
And a lot of schools rely on themselves for it. And so if you're, you know, a school that does it yourself and your budget strapped, I can understand not having a wind gauge.
Sure.
But yeah, I hope that becomes a thing for sure.
I hope so too. I mean, you're weighing implements.
I can remember we were at the Lowell Kathy Tallis invite a few years ago, and Jackson Perez ran like a 1/10 of the second faster than the school 100-meter record.
Yeah.
And there was a stiff tailwind that day.
Yep.
So,
but that one, and then I think the other big thing that I wanted to just touch on is there was some talk of people not enjoying having to have so many teams, having to, why does I think I truly am a believer, especially in
so many teams, as in 6 teams,
right? Like
That's-
people want to be able to do it with like a quad meet or something.
No,
like
you don't. No,
Well-
we don't need to do that. And that's just that
Well,
we can. That's a. Oh man, that's
no. And my
you shouldn't be thinking. I mean, okay, there are. I don't like. There are some coaches who put zero emphasis on their league or their conference.
Yep.
I don't love that. I don't like that.
Yep.
I think you should care. However, I want to be at the point where it just happens automatically. Our eyes are on regionals, and our eyes are on qualifying people for the state finals, and we're going to win our conference because of that.
Yes.
And on the road to that, we don't want to blow our kids apart at a dual meet.
Nope.
I want to go undefeated. I do, but I want to do it without having to worry about that stuff.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and my thing is, especially for field events, almost all field events at every meet, but especially smaller meets, are run by volunteers.
Mm-hmm.
Half the time, the volunteers don't know what they're doing until they get there, which is not a complaint. I'm so thankful, we all are, for volunteers who come in and give their time and try to figure it out and help. But mistakes happen, stuff happens, and that's okay. We're all human. But if you're trying to hit an
Walt
EQ,
and Mark have never made mistakes.
we'll let them believe that. No.
I'm never up there, so
No,
that's not entirely true. But I'm not. Anyway.
No, they do it.
Yeah,
really good. And they all do. But stuff happens, and the more eyes on it, the better. And for some kid to get a mark that he doesn't, we had it a couple years ago where one of our JV kids was throwing a 4K shot. Nobody caught it. He threw 42 feet, and then he never threw over like 36 feet again. Well, like if you do that and it was a bigger kid, like all of a sudden, he just hit the PR mark and or the EQ mark, and all of a sudden he never gets close again. It's not fair that way. So trying to keep it as fair as possible and trying to keep it is not putting any more pressure on the volunteers who are already giving up their time to do it.
Right.
So
yeah, we could come up with a billion reasons why you shouldn't do it at a quad.
Yep.
It'd be too easy to create a ticky-tack qualifying meet.
Sure.
You lose sight of your JV kids.
Yep.
That I don't understand. I like 6. I do like 6, and I'm curious. I'm curious if they did it so that conferences with 6 people, 6 schools, can use their conference meet like us.
So here's the question though. Like how upset would we have been? Because when we were in the point where we would have 5, right? Weren't we right there?
5 schools?
Yeah, wasn't there a point where we had 5, or maybe it was?
I don't think so. I don't think we were ever in danger of 5. I think that OK wanted to keep us away from 5.
Okay.
But so for anybody who doesn't know, last year a bunch of schools pulled out of the OK, the Ottawa Kent conference, and so they had to reshuffle the conference members again. And last year we were in a conference of 7.
Yep.
And this year we're in a conference of 6.
Okay. I don't know why in my head at one point I thought I saw there was 5, and maybe I just misread it. But I mean, I do feel for conference meets that maybe have a smaller conference that you only have 5 teams. Like, that does stink. And I think maybe there should be some exceptions to the rules. If it's that kind of a meet, you should maybe still be able to apply, which maybe that comes in the future.
Maybe. I'm curious how many conferences there are that only have 5 teams.
Maybe there's none. I don't know. But I'm just saying, if there was one and it's your conference meet and you can't use that, it would kind of, does kind of stink. But anyway.
I've been told that ours will be, so
okay,
that's good.
Good.
Okay. Right. So we can talk about numbers. We can talk about more people's responses and things that people are happy about or upset about. What do you want to talk about next?
Let's go through some of the numbers a little bit. We don't have to go through every one, but just some things that maybe stood out is like the girls' mile being 4:52. Like, that's a high mark,
stiff, but it's the average of 6th place.
Sure.
It's the math. I mean,
they all are, and it is what it is. And, people say, well, a lot of these girls aren't hitting that, or distance runners aren't hitting that till later in the season. Yeah, it happens. Sure. But you could say that about every event.
Yep.
So if you follow training and your training is set to peak you for conference, regionals, states, however you set it to peak, if you hit one before that, you're doing pretty dang good.
Yeah.
That's the
before
point.
we really dive into the numbers, I would preface it by saying we have a decent team. We have a pretty decent team on both sides. There are numbers I can pick out of here where I'm pretty confident we'll have a few kids get some of these things out of the way beforehand. So it's actually in the distance, I'm not sure about that. 4:14 is pretty stiff. And that's my event, but as head coach, I think it's fair. Because I think we can check those boxes. I'm curious. I would like to think that if we weren't in this position, that I would have the same opinion.
Yeah.
But I will say that we've been in this position before.
Yeah. I realized that looking into, like, right now, it can seem very jaded that, we have some spots, but I've been there.
We've been there. For those who don't know us, like, I sent a text message to a friend coach the other day with a screenshot of our first ever duel in 2019. In 2019 versus Zeeland West. My first head coach's duel, Zeeland West boys 123, Byron Center boys 9.
Yeah. I
don't think we scored a single point at regionals that year.
No,
okay, so we've been there.
Yep.
We have been there. We weren't good and we've made it good. So if you are a coach who is in that situation and you're looking at this and thinking, how these numbers are, we're talking D1. So the numbers are hard, and you look at that and you're looking at the state qualifier numbers every year and thinking how, and then the early qualifier numbers come out and they're even harder. And you think, what are we doing here? We've been there.
Yep.
Just be a good coach and get the kids out and make the team a place they want to be, and focus on winning some duels, and then focus on winning your conference, and then focus on placing higher at regionals. It's a step-by-step process.
And it all comes down to getting buy-in from kids, getting them to believe it, getting them to bring more kids in, getting them to want to be there, getting them to want to put the time in. But like you said, that comes from being a good coach, not just a good coach who's, I know my stuff, a good coach who wants to truly
be a kid
raise
magnet.
These kids to be a better person.
Yep.
All around.
What Tony Holler changed about his coaching, make practice the best part of their day.
Yep.
And me and Tony might disagree a little bit on what that means. But we've also got different kids. So yeah, make practice the place they want to be, make the team the place they want to be, and good things start happening.
Because there's a lot of kids that whatever sport it is, that's their escape from reality.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's kids who might struggle in school, might struggle with home stuff, might this, might that, whatever it is. But if they want to be there, they're going to get something out of it. They're going to grow. And as a coach, that's all we're ever there for, is to help these kids realize who they are, realize their potential in life.
Right. You can, like, winning is the point. Obvious, like, we wouldn't be doing this if we didn't want to win. But the fact of the matter is the numbers that we're talking about right now, like, that shouldn't not be the reason we're doing this. It shouldn't.
Nope.
It shouldn't. If that was the only reason we're doing this, we both would have quit a long time ago.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Anyway, yeah. So some of the, let's see, what do you think? Where, I'm assuming I know the answer, but where's the first place your eyes looked at this chart?
Well, I mean, for me, it was pretty clear. I was looking for four things, but 2 events. And I think they're sit pretty well. I mean, guys' disc for me, if anything, is a little low.
That's what I thought too.
But
that's exactly what I thought.
But I'm judging it off from last year and not looking back 3 years. But I mean, guys' disc, just especially for D1, seems low. I really expected that to be 160. And then to see D1 and D2 the same, honestly, doesn't surprise me too much. We came from D1.
Oh, I didn't see that part. That's crazy.
We came from D2, Byron did, and there were a lot of years where D2 was the stronger of the 2 throwing conferences or divisions when you came to Division 1, Division 2. So that doesn't surprise me.
Did the Zealands make the jump around that same time?
They were a little behind us.
Okay, but they were D2.
They were D2. We were, yeah.
Yeah, so that tracks.
Yeah, so I mean, there was some time there that like D1, D2, like they were close, and D2 was, I mean, probably could have been arguably the better of the 2 as far as distances, but regardless, to still see it the same, it doesn't surprise me. But 156 for D2, yeah, that sounds, I can see that. 160 for D1, it's really what I expected. So I'll take that in a happy surprise way there.
Yeah.
And then shot put 53.2 again, probably. I would expect it maybe a little bit higher, 6 inches or so, but that doesn't.
I don't know. I think that one makes sense to me.
It does.
I don't know. Just speaking from our region, which is not a bad throwing region. It just doesn't seem like you've seen like a dude who throws between 55 and 60, and then you see maybe 2 dudes between 45 and 50.
Yeah, maybe.
And then there's a lot of like, or maybe between 50 and 55, and then there's like
50 and 52. Like you see a couple guys way up, and then you see a couple guys kind of.
You got a big mushy 48, 49.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So and then girls wise, 123.6. 2 years ago, I might have been a little disappointed in that because that would have been. But hey, you know what? I agree with it. I mean, it should be. It's hard. It should be hard to get there. And 39.6 for me, and that made sense.
Yeah. I think my eyes went to discus first, actually.
Okay.
Because I had caught wind from a spy that I have who heard that it was their average of tops, the number 6, 3-year average of that. I can't talk. And so I calculated that myself for the distances. Yeah, 414 for the boys I think that's absolutely fair.
Yep.
I'm wondering if any, like, how many guys hit that this year. It seems like, at least on this side of the state, Seth Connor, Jennison, he's good. He's in our conference, so we'll probably see him do it. Not sure how many guys on this side of the state are gonna run that fast. Not as familiar with what's going on the east side in D1 right now.
And
yeah, that girl's 452. That's cooking.
Yeah, I mean, and for reference, looking at the 1600 from last year's state meet, 6th place, 5th place, or 7th place didn't make it.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's the state meet. So that tracks for exactly what they're looking for.
154 in the 800 that's pretty good. I think 800 I've seen of the distance events. I think I've seen the most. I could be wrong. I might just be just making things up. I think I've seen the most additional qualifiers out of the 800.
Okay.
Um,
Which honestly seems a little crazy because normally the 800 is the event that people they don't gravitate to.
no, but the ones that do are good.
That's the
2 mile, 2 miles, 9:14, 10:40. Again, I think that there's a now they do it at like the Shepherd Blue Jay. You'll see, I don't know how many kids ran under 9:10.
It was
so many.
Oh my gosh, it was so many.
I personally, having a fast field certainly helps. Having a meet set up for it certainly helps. But if you've got good weather, man, I'd love to see more distance runners embrace just going out and doing it. Not worrying about the elite distance races. They're cool. It's exciting to see all those like that, just, huge number of people hit those times, but I don't know. I'm like a Steve Prefontaine front runner type of guy. Like just go do it, you know? But I think those numbers are fair.
The 4x4
relays. What's that?
I'm looking at the 4x4 relay. Like, we did, and I can't say I thought. We had a dang good 4x4 last year, and we PR'd at the state meet with a 3:21.98.
Yep.
We were barely under that ad qual. That's at the state meet and a good race. Like, so that's a quick number, but again, trying to get the best kids there. Like, but I think that's fair for what it is. It's gonna be quick, but
the other relays make sense. 7:53 for the 4x8 or 9:22 for the girls. 7:53 is fast, but you see, like, there's a lot of teams that can do that. I think 8:04 for the official state qualifier might be one of the softer marks.
For which one?
8:04 for the 4x8 for the active regular state qualifier.
Okay.
Just having seen what a lot of these 4x8 teams can do, like 8:04 it's not that fast. I think the 4x1 for the boys, 43.3, that's incredibly fair. No, sorry, 42.5. 42.5 is incredibly fair.
Yeah.
It's incredibly fair.
Yep.
I saw a comment on Twitter today. So I don't know how official the account is, if it's just the first person that created the Illinois XCTF account. I don't know if they're like with the state or just a fan or what, but they posted Michigan, like they posted the news that Michigan is going to this change, and I think they were kind of implying like we're soft for doing it, but none of their replies agreed with that premise.
Okay.
But somebody replied, looking at the numbers, I'm inferring that Michigan is good at the intermediate hurdles. Which is true. 39.2 for the 300s and 45.1 for the girls. That's pretty fast.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. And so girls 4x1, looking back real quick, I just went to look and I was curious. Last year, 9th place at the state meet, not a PR, almost made it. 10th place, PR'd, and they were, 2/10 shy. That's not, but still.
So you're saying girls 4x4 state finals last year?
4x1. Girls 4x1, looking at it, if you look at just last year's, actually it might be a little low. Like maybe that should have been bumped up a little bit, just looking at last year's marks. So that one might be another one to watch, that maybe if a couple extra get in with that 49-second 4x1, we might see a few extras hit that earlier than what maybe they're planning on. But
Yeah.
you go back 2 years, maybe it's way different. Obviously it's average of 3 years. So I'm just looking at 1 year right now, but
yeah. And that's what when I did that exercise in the distances, there was a year there were 2 of the years. I think it was, so this would have been 23, 22, 21.
Yep.
21 and 23 were both significantly faster in the mile than in 22.
Okay.
So it like, it's a running average, and generally things are, the way sports work is generally things get faster and harder as time goes on.
Yep.
But you're going to have a year where it's different. So
I think if you go back, but then there's other things where if you go back and look at, I mean, this is a long time ago, but in 2007 or when I graduated in 2007, I'm pretty sure the regional mark or the state qualifying mark was still 48 something, 48.2, let's just say, per shot. It's 49 foot now. Like, yeah, it's gotten higher. But that's not that much higher in the last.
no, that's a kid like figuring out that one piece.
Yeah.
Right.
No, that's one event, but I'm just using it as a reference that I have
Right.
knowledge to off the top of my head. Like, that's not that much further in 18 years.
Right.
So a lot of the stuff but there's other things where, yeah, it's a lot quicker, a lot higher than it used to be.
Yep.
So
any other numbers that are jumping out at you?
No, I mean,
girls 200. Now, again, we're on the west side, and the girls sprints on the east side of the state are good. That 25.4 for the 200 for the girls, that seems that seems like it's cooking.
25.4. Yeah, I mean, that's 4.
We're excited if a girl is in the 26s.
Yeah. Yeah, that 4 people made it last year.
Yeah.
In finals. So yeah, that's a cooking time. So there must have been at some point, I'm guessing there was a year in there that they had quite a few speedsters get in and bump that number down a little bit.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, everything else on here seems.
The boys' high jump mark is tough, but it's a tough event.
Tough event.
It's a tough event.
Same with long jump, 21-10. I mean, you see a lot of 19, 20 footers, even low 21s.
But when you get there's another example of when you get a kid who can jump 22 feet, like, he's gonna jump 21-10 at an invite, right? Yeah. And it's about protecting that. And here's the other cool thing. We can, I think, good transition out of just reciting numbers off a page. It's going to give you so much flexibility as a coach and an athlete.
Yep.
Like, and peace of mind. Like, here's another weird thing that happened last year. Our high jumper JJ Brock, his spike fell apart at high jump. He won. I forget which was first, high or long jump, but he barely made it in high jump because his spike fell apart and he didn't have an extra pair, and that was hard in his ankle. And like, he got in, he hit the state qualifying mark is 6'2", and his PR was 6'8".
Yeah,
and he barely made it in. So it's like, it just gives peace of mind. We've got a guy who, if he runs 49 in the 400, which is I believe it's a little bit faster than his PR.
He's gonna do it.
Yeah, I think so too. And and that's gonna make it so much, like, then when we go into the regionals, like, as a coach and an athlete, there's a little bit less to worry about, and you can go compete for the regional trophy with peace of mind, because you don't have to worry about, oh, if I tweak something in the open, Or if I have a bad race in the open, am I going to have enough left for the 4x4? Or maybe you can move that kid to the 4x2 or the open 2, and which you wouldn't have done because because you're worried about your 4x4, right?
Yep.
It just gives so much more flexibility.
Yeah, agreed. And
we're talking about one of our guys who's a thrower, but who's kind of a freak. And it's like, okay, if he gets some things out of the way in the regular season, maybe we can put him in an open 4 and see what he can really do and see if he's an option for the 4x4, right?
Yeah.
Like,
And it sounds crazy because you don't hear that much when you're talking about throwers, especially not to the level of talking about maybe being able to hit these marks, or, well, not maybe, but being able to hit these marks. So
yeah, I think having options, being able to go into regionals, if you hit the marks, being able to go into regionals with those sure shot kids and not worrying about bubble wrap, not worrying about getting sick, you can attack that meet. You might see shake people. One of the things people were worried about is nobody's going to care about regionals if you can qualify beforehand. And speaking as a coach, it almost makes it easier for me to go and really really make an effort to win that meet.
Yeah.
Right.
We're not just looking for a couple kids like, oh, we can't run a kid in the mile and 2 mile because, or whatever it is, the 2 mile and 800, because which one can he qualify in or has a better chance? We need to save him for that. Now we can run him in both, try to get points in both. So,
we should probably wrap up soon, right?
Yeah.
So what are some other things that people have been saying that they're disappointed by it, or they don't like or do like?
Let's see. Well, I mean, kind of touching back, not even just on the smaller meets, but people wanting to have it at more meets. Like every meet should be a qualifying meet. Again, I go back to the more meets you have, the more opportunity there is for stuff to happen, whether it's planned or not planned, mistakes, stuff happens. And this just keeps it as fair and as open and everything as accurate as possible.
Yep. I think the first thing I want to really specifically talk about is people who think it's too hard. Like, we talked about how it's a state championship, it should be hard. I personally would rather just like challenge the kids. Right? Like if we're talking about something that's hard, that means that it's a challenge.
Yep.
Like, I would much rather figure out how to get that good than complain about it. And again, I've been in that position where we had no state qualifiers for multiple
100%.
years, and then we had one, and then we had another one. It was the same girl twice, and then we had like 4, and then we had multiple relay teams, right? So just challenge them.
Yep.
Coach them up, do it the right way. Yeah, I just stop complaining.
Yeah. And honestly,
there's enough to complain about. Quit complaining.
As coaches, the more we complain about it, the more we put that in our athletes' heads, the more we're telling them, like, well, yeah, it's going to be hard. We don't think you can get there. We're just going to complain about it because we want it different. We don't think that you're ready to get there. Like, maybe they aren't, but you got to give them every bit of confidence that they have a chance. I mean, yeah, if you have a girl who's running a 5:30 and that's her big PR, yeah, is she going to run a 4:52? Probably not. But if you go tell her she's not going to run a 4:52, she's definitely not going to.
Definitely not. Right.
So the more you put that in their head that they can't do it, the more it's never going to happen.
Right.
And
so
they
pay attention. They hear you.
Yeah.
They hear 100%.
You. And I don't care if you put it online, if you say it out loud, all it takes is one time. They hear it and it's in their head.
Yep. You go on the Facebook page and there are people with ideas. Here's how I would do it.
Yep.
Here's how it should be done. Here's the better way. Why isn't it done this way? I just want to say your idea is probably your idea for a reason.
The one thing I will say is I do like people, if they're not complaining about it but putting out ideas.
I think
I'm a big proponent of putting your idea out there, because
your idea out there.
that's how all this stuff
I
changes.
didn't see that in this conversation.
No, I mean,
saw the complainers were, this is how I would have done it.
yeah.
And I think it's self-serving.
Yeah. I mean, I think if you have an idea, putting it out there, or especially end of the year, and I think they will do it, or they should, Mika should go out and say, okay, first year, this is how do you think it went? Give us some feedback. Tell us what maybe we should try to change.
But
And
the thing is that those surveys exist.
Oh, I know.
Like you get as a head coach, I don't know. Do you get the ones from MHSAA?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you get those. Like if you're part of MITCA, you get surveys. The MITCA board, you can email them whenever you want.
100%. And that's,
you can go find their email on the website. And if you have a concern, you can go through official channels.
Yep. And
complaining on Facebook isn't doing anything.
That's how we make the changes. I mean, some of the MITCA board is on there, but they're going to look at the complaints and be like, oh, there's more people complaining. Give them constructive criticism or feedback, whatever, however you want to look at it. Give them true, go at it with a mentality of, we're going to try to help. Here's maybe what we could look at in the future. Could we look at this? Could we, if you want to go at it that way, 100%. But to come in here and say, these are too hard, it's never going to happen, this is too big, you can't do it enough meets, you're just trying to hurt the kids. Or my favorite one, I told my kids it was going to be easier, and all of a sudden it's
maybe you shouldn't have done that.
Why would you tell your kids it's going to be easier? You're setting them up for failure.
Yeah, that's like, why would you
do that?
No, that I don't that's appalling.
Yeah. So, yeah.
I see a lot of distance coaches complaining about how hard it is. Like, and I'm a distance coach. I agree it's difficult. I don't think that, I'm afraid that a lot of distance coaches don't have a good feel for the other numbers. Right. And so they just feel attacked because they see this 414, 552.
Sure.
Or how coaches in the bigger schools, seeing my first few years, I would see the qualifying numbers for D4 and just lose my mind. And I quickly got over that. Now is 430, or one of the comments that I posted on Instagram that we're doing this, and one of the comments I got was, the D4 standards are way too slow. I might agree with that statement. Small school size included, specifically on the distance side. I think sprints, the speed and power events, I think that really follows the population size. I think the distance events are a little soft when you get down there. Yeah. One interesting comment I saw was somebody afraid that duels and tries and quads are going to go away. Right.
Oh.
And the interesting, through as we went down that conversation, the interesting part was he doesn't have league meets apparently, which seems weird. Yeah. So there's like, he's afraid that, so he has to just go schedule duels with people.
Really weird.
It seems really weird.
Really weird.
Now the way we do things is weird to somebody else, so that's fine.
Everything different is weird. Yep.
But I would say if that's something you're worried about, like even if you're in a league, if you're worried about so much emphasis placed on these EQ meets, that the JV kid, his worry was losing JV kids because there's not enough opportunities for them, that's something I worry about too.
But
and go make opportunities for them.
Well, and
also then lobby with your conference, assuming you're in a conference. My answer was lobby your conference to make sure that we have a good conference setup.
Yep.
Right. The MHSAA doesn't control your conference.
Right.
And that's entirely up to the coaches working together to make sure you have the best product.
Yep.
So, yeah.
Well, and I think with that too, overall, people shouldn't be chasing just EQ meets. It should still be fun for the kids. If you can throw a couple EQ meets as relays throughout, or not relays, invites throughout the year, you know, and if maybe all the invites you do go to are that, great. But most of your invites, or I'd be willing to say that none of them, you're taking JV kids to, unless you have a JV invite. So that's not changing the JV kids. And
Right.
unless you're going to take your conference meets and only go to jamborees and you're doing 2 jamborees and you're going
Well,
against
that's
every
what I
school,
think. That's what people are. That's a worry to some people.
yeah, but
To which I say, like, that sounds like a terrible idea.
that's a terrible
As a coach,
idea.
that sounds terrible.
Can you imagine having a 6-team jamboree on a Tuesday in the middle of
Yeah.
the week?
Yeah. Yeah.
We got to leave school at noon to get there? Like,
No, thank you. No way.
Like, I think that people over exaggerate or get too extreme with what could happen too quick. Like, they're not going to disappear. Dual meets aren't disappearing.
No. Yeah, and that's like I said, that's up to you. And if it's something that you're really worried about, then talk to your AD. Make sure that your conference guidelines are up to your specifications. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Again, what do you think? Most teams, well, at max, most teams probably have like 4 or 5 kids that they're thinking could maybe hit these marks, and not just like, oh, outside reach, like truly could go in and hit these marks.
Right.
And that's max. I mean, sure, you're going to have a freak team somewhere that's 10, but most of your teams maybe have 1 or 2. You're not going to set up an entire schedule for a team of 80 plus kids or however many you have for one kid to try to hit a mark at one of these meets.
I hope not.
Like, you hope not. And if you think that kid's that good anyway, they're probably going to do it at regionals, pending weather, and that's why those whole thing change, or pending injury, or pending a shoe blowout, but you're going to go to an invite, an invite, and they're going to be able to do it there, you would hope. And you'd hope that invite has that already set. So that's not changing anything. So overall, you're not seeing a bunch of people, you know, if these marks were super low, these were the regular regional marks, you know, or the state qualifier at the regional mark, sure. Yeah. Then I could see people trying to chase it more. But they're set high enough on purpose that only a certain select few people are going to be able to hit them. So most teams aren't setting up for every meet we go to has to be an EQ meet. It's not. It's just not there.
No. Some of the complaining I saw was more participants means the longer state finals, which I'm tired of. Like, there are days where, yeah, we're at our furthest away dual or try, and it's heat 8 of 30 of the 200, and I'm like, oh man, I gotta get home.
Yep.
You know, but still, it's my job to give a crap.
Yeah.
Right. And we're not talking about that meet. We're talking about the state finals.
Yeah.
Right. Like last year, the weather kind of sucked. So by the end, we're all cold and wet and shivering a little bit. But it's the friggin' state finals. Like,
right.
of any meet that we should never be arguing about the length of, assuming it's being run effectively. Right. Assuming let's just make some assumptions. It's being run effectively. Right. And good things are happening. Like, oh no, we're at the state finals for another hour. That's terrible. That's so bad.
And again, going off from that, this is set up for only a select few people being able to make it. Outside of a freak year where, holy cow, there is a group of 1,600 meter runners on the girls' side that is crushing it.
And we have an extra heat of the girls.
And they don't run it at the regionals. Wow. So there's another 6 minutes. What are you adding to it?
Right. Exactly.
I mean, unless you have enough, the only place I could ever see it is if you truly got enough throwing events throwing qualifiers to add a whole nother flight.
And an entire flight.
Okay.
Right.
Then
Like
you're
when
talking
you
that
actually sit down
45
and think
minutes.
about the numbers, it's ridiculous.
It-
We're gonna add another heat of the 100. Oh, boo-hoo. Right. That's another 2 or 3 minutes.
Right. High jump, you're going to add 5 more people to it. Oh, okay.
Right. That's the event that's over the first anyway.
Right. Realistically, the only people that ever should be complaining are discus, shot put, and pole vault. Those are the only 3 that are really truly going to extend anything.
In pole vault, like the best kids are coming in an hour and a half into the competition anyway.
Right. So, yeah, I mean, it's not adding a billion people. It's not. It's just not going to do it.
Nope.
And if it does, you know what? Then Michigan just had the best year they've ever had.
Right.
And whoop-de-doo.
Right.
Enjoy the state meet because you're a part of something that you're not going to see again.
Right. That's the best point you can make is that like there's so much hand wringing about some of these dumb details that like we're just trying to like watch the best track and field meet that we can. That's all we're trying to do.
Yeah.
We want to see a good track meet. Come on.
We have a sport right now that we are, as of recent, having to also fight against the increase or the adding of lacrosse in a lot of schools, and will be more adding of girls rugby in what's
Boys
coming
volleyball.
up in some schools, volleyball. You're talking about potentially having field hockey with some schools. I mean, how many more of sports are going to get added? And we're trying to figure out how to keep this sport as relevant and exciting for kids as possible. Let's make this that.
Right. Yep. So in summary, challenge your kids. Stop complaining. Have fun. Enjoy yourself.
Trust your process.
Yep. Yep. Don't react too drastically.
No.
Keep the main thing.
And give it a year. Let's see how this goes. Yeah, if we have, holy cow, the state meet doubled in time because, man, everybody is here, hit it. Great. Let's figure out next year how we can tweak that to make it not that.
Maybe
we're never going to know.
Maybe that's the kick the state needs to get a 2-day state meet.
Yeah.
But, I mean, we can keep dreaming. But
sure. You're never going to know until you try to make a change.
Right. Yep.
And see how it goes. Just like this. We're never going to know how this goes until we try this the first time. And then we'll see.
Right.
That's it.
Yep.
So cool. Anything else?
Tried to keep it as easygoing as possible. I hope nobody's feelings are hurt.
You did good. I hope I didn't go too hard. I don't think I did, but
no. Yep, it's gonna be fun.
Yeah,
it's gonna be fun, and it's nice to see the numbers. Can actually put some plans together.
Yes,
it's gonna be a good year.
Yes,
I hope it's a good year for everybody.
Yeah. Yep. 100%.
Now we just gotta melt some of this snow. Pray that March 10 our track is not white. The sun comes out.
Yeah. Pray that we don't lose too many kids to the indoor state meet getting moved back a week and practice getting moved up a week and every other thing that could possibly cram it all into the same exact time frame.
Yep.
But it's okay.
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 Cool.
Well, if you made it all the way through, thank you very much. Episode 3. We'll come up with some 3. Made it.
All right.
Some cool stuff for next week. Mitten Athletics Live. We're out.
See it.